We've been talking a lot lately about the nature of reality as fundamentally based in frequency. I don't believe that even through the sciences or even our own study or consideration that we can actually grok the fundamental nature of all that this creation implies. If there's so many distinctions and idiosyncratic ways in which it arises, and then we get to the place that all of us and the Sangha here have gotten to, where we know our particular participation in how reality arises. And so that's actually the doorway, and through which we can move into the greater opening of the nature of reality and our part in it. In the Bible, I think it points to, I think in the Old Testament, that human beings were made or are made in the image of God. And in, I think, one verse in John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And we can look at that as a synonym with frequency, so that we start to be the vehicles of the consciousnesses through which realities show up. Part of the direction that Robin and I have been offering together over the last 4 or 5 months, has been the seeing the nature of reality and all of the awakening journey through the lens of human design, and noting for each one of us the way in which the specificity of the design gives all of the variety and all of the interesting ways in which human beings show up, interact, and the possibility with that awareness of one's own design. I talk about it as getting the owner's manual to the vehicle, the body-mind being the vehicle through which the incarnation expresses, that we start to have the fun of that level of variety, right? The specific gifts, the specific expressions, the natural inclinations that make life interesting and give us the experience of ourselves appearing as other, maybe even more interesting, although I doubt that. Right? It's like one of the things we've been doing is noting the transits that show up in human design as the sun moves through the cosmos, or through, what does the sun move through?
64 hexagrams of
the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. That's impressive, isn't it?
It is.
The sun is actually activating. And so I'm always in awe of the ancient wisdom and how it continues to have, not only was it revealed, and now we understand it more from our own experience, right? 64 hexagrams of the I Ching are the gates in the human design pattern, right? And so as the sun is moving, many of us know about astrology as it's moving through the signs. This is much more specific. And right now, the sun is in the gate 41. Did I get it right?
You did.
Yeah. And that is coming off the root center in human design. And it has to do with fundamental, what would you call it, desires, but
Imagination. It's like the beginning of the new year. Yesterday, and these next 5 days are like the human design new year.
oh wow.
And it's that when the sun moves into 41, it activates that aspect of us that is looking for what's possible for humanity. So it's possibility. Poli's always talking about creating heaven on earth,
Right.
and what's possible. And this is like the initiating codon of what's possible for humanity.
That's so exciting. And, you know, for each one of us, whether we have, everybody's got all of the gates in their design. They're either activated through transits, or they may be part of your birth
Right.
design. But it's so, I find it really interesting that these energies cooperate with, we're a part of all of this creation. We're a part of all of this, even though I often call it a projection. That's not to be disparaging in any way. That, I mean, it's just fundamentally awe-filled. And so these energies, as we become aware of them and notice how our response is to new beginnings, this new year, we probably noted it. We had a Sangha gathering here on New Year's Eve, the January 1st New Year's Eve, which is the astrological New Year's Eve. But this one today is to start to become aware of this opening into inspiration for possibilities and for new expression and for new creation, so that and we may all, I suspect, be feeling some of this and maybe not have given it the validity that it deserves, because it's coming in this deep way of at the level of the nature of creation. Through human design, we can notice it. Our ability to live happily, freely, and in full expression in this reality depends absolutely, I would nearly say 100%, but I don't want to go that far. But mostly it depends on the lens that we see reality through. We have a self-perception that was created with the early wounding, and then we have the early wounding as a distortion lens through which we see reality. And so we are, it's important for us to recognize that when we believe something, for goddamn sure, it may not be true. We have to allow this spaciousness that our mind wants. It wants not only validity, but it wants assurance, and it wants to be right. And that's a part of the limitation of how we can experience and express in our own living. When we need to be right, we're closed into a limited energetic experience. So this new possibility, as we look at the new year and the new cycle for 2025, it's an opportunity for us to start to allow the spaciousness within us to be received as the gift that it is, instead of our tendency to attach to and demand that things be logical, that they be obvious, that they be, because that was the fall. That was the fall out of the heart, which is where everything arises. It's in the model, the kindergarten model I use, the heart is the awake awareness. I think R.J. Spina points to the heart as the spaciousness between the physical heart and the spine. It's a sense of our heart nature being present at the heart of our beingness in these physical bodies. But the opening into being coming from that energy, which is the aliveness, instead of from the insistence that we need to know, or that we need to be right, or that we have a handle on something, as if that would give us assurance of outcome. So and that comes from the mind. So when we lose our mind and fall back into our hearts, we fall into possibility and opportunity that is not available through the mind, that has not been available in this reality since the fall. And this is the outcome of what we see now in this collective reality, much of it based in fear and the need to control. is the ultimate expression. I mean, not that it can't get worse, it probably can, but it's certainly an ultimate expression of the limitation of the human rational analytic mind. And to depend on that instead of the opening into allowing. In the teaching lately, I've been talking a lot about the field of allowing. And I say that everything we need to know, we learned from the Beatles. Love is all there is, and let it be. And the let it be part is the field of allowing. It's just like the relaxation out of our mind and into our heart. We relax into potentiality, into possibility, like the things that can show up, the things that can happen that our mind could never know ahead of time, nor do we need to. You see, our faith needs to be in our true nature, and the true nature of awareness in which realities arise. So the wonder and the magic of that is always showing up and overflowing. And our need to control then stops being so grabby. Okay? Like our tendency to create a cause and effect equation out of everything that we see, which limits our experience, right? So it's like the opportunity for this new year is this the magic and the wonder of the residence in the heart instead of the mind, of the peace and the ease that comes with allowing, which means at first we have to allow ourselves. That's what I often call being on one's own behalf, to allow ourselves to be whatever we are and to not be so judgmental, so clamping down on criticism, self-judgment. You know, one of the teachings in this Sangha is that all judgment is self-judgment. And the way that that works is that if you don't have self-judgment going on, you're not going to project any judgment on anybody or anything else. Mm-hmm. And so that's such good news, Dad, because we get to do the work at the place that the error was created, which is turning against ourselves. And as we do the work there, our reality starts to clear. The distortion field begins to fall away, and wisdom arises as an aspect of our nature.
So probably all of the negative headlines of the day is part of that distortion field.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the collective distortion field, because the collective is caught in the fear, right? And that's what creates polarity.
Right.
And all of that polarity and the fear and the need to know instead of the faith and the presence and this willingness to experience the wonder of aliveness, the wonder of just this, right? Yeah. Right here, right now, the magic of it. Yeah. So the larger reality is the the fall, if it happens and it does for each of us when we incarnate here, and it's probably happened what we would think of as prior lifetimes, although that doesn't have to be held in that particular configuration. But we know that we come in with something. We know that we don't incarnate into this 3D reality based in polarity and underpinned by fear, unless we have a matching frequency of some kind. But as we become aware of this, as the light shines on this and how it operates, we can know the difference between what we have, which is an awareness of how this has worked and how it's working, and who I am as the one who has it. The distinction between true nature as awareness is being the one I am who has a particular body-mind unit, who has particular circumstances, a particular age, a particular whatever. The awakening comes when we get that distinction, what I have and who I am. But knowing oneself as the awareness in which reality arises is an entirely different reality than than when you identify with the limitation of what you think is arising. And an amazing ability that all of us have, and that's edified in our educational system, that we can know, that we need to know, that we can get a handle on something through the rational analytic approach of cause and effect. And the limitation of that is that it does not take into account the larger way in which reality works, which is now being pointed to in quantum physics through the entanglement theory, where everything of like frequency is moving into coming together and then into expression, right? And we can often, I talk to so many people every week, and every week there are reports of things that came, in quotes, out of the blue, right? No, they come from your frequency. Then that frequency finds resonance with something else that's of like frequency, and then it shows up in your reality, right? When we're against ourselves, that frequency is not of the highest possibility. And so what we keep doing is seeing through the distortion lens of our self-judgment and the limitation that that implies. So we are coming home now. That's the good news. We're coming home to relaxing out of our minds, opening our hearts, feeling the wonder of reality, and being willing to be surprised. So with that little homily or whatever it was, we can open to questions.
Yeah, I just, two things. First of all, I want to just say again that the intention is to put this on YouTube. So if you do not want to be recorded, please tell me and I will stop the recording while you do your share. The second thing I just want to ask you, Polly, in terms of what you're saying, there's so much conditioning against letting ourselves, you said this is an opportunist time to tap into this natural support
Right.
for this frequency, but there's so much conditioning and so much adaptive behaviors that cover up the even allowing of the want, the imagination, or like if I walk into a store and I think I can't buy what's there,
Right.
I'm not going to let myself even open to the possibility of that. So how do I access that place, that deepest place of opening into the imagination of possibility?
Yeah. Yeah, that does seem to be the conundrum at that intersection. But there's a very clear distinction between a low feeling frequency of limitation and the higher frequency of possibility. And so it's like, it's like if there were a litmus paper, it would be one that you wouldn't have to pee on it, but you could test the spirit of what is it that's operating and feel into, notice if what comes up for you is, oh, well, I can't afford it. Oh, well, I shouldn't be aspiring to that kind of influence or that kind of affluence even. So it's like we have to be aware so that we don't go unk. I call it unk. It's unconscious. We don't shut down on our awareness, which is always going to be, we're going to be experiencing the frequencies. And so when the frequency is peaceful and easy and high, and something occurs to us, then, using our human design, our astrology, whatever, we can take the next step. When we are shut down by a low frequency of lack, then we need to do the 6 steps to freedom minimally. That would be the least thing to do. And that's to find out what it is that you're believing, because you're believing something that is being perceived through a distortion field. It's not accurate, you know, and so that's the direction.
So let me just say it back to you, make sure I landed it, picked up what you put down. So, you're inviting us into a heaven realm, heaven on earth realm.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah,
Creating a new world that we share together. Right? We're good so far?
Yeah.
The way that this new year, let's just put it in that context, is inviting us to be at a different frequency level of imagination, right? So if we're feeling anything that's contracted, although it gets a little tricky here because this is also called decrease. Because there is, like we talked about before, you
the
know,
power of limits.
the power of limits,
Right.
right? So I think where I'm still, okay, so I think what you're pointing to is ego activity shows up when there is a low frequency, when there's a lack, a feeling of lack or
Mhm.
non-possibility.
Right.
And that's where we do the work.
And that's where we've been living for most of its incarnation. So it feels more familiar than the other. It feels more familiar than possibility. Right.
Right, it's copacetic, it feels
Right.
natural, it feels aligned in some weird way.
Right. And all of us have had some kind of, say, a teacher or a parent or some kind of adult person say to us, well, you're just too big for your britches, or who do you think you are? Or something like that, that adds to our sense of our own limitation, right? Being deeply in touch with what's satisfying. So we're not looking here to do what Rhonda Burns did in such a good way in 2006 when she promoted The Secret. We're not looking to go beyond anything except the fullness of our true nature, which is deeply satisfying. We've been programmed to believe that it's what we can get that's going to make us happy. It's who we will be to ourselves that has already the fullness of happy and satisfied and fun, actually. So it's not looking for something out here necessarily.
So, I think you just gave me a big clue. So this imagination, the taproot is who we're being to ourselves.
Right.
And that's where we connect into the heaven on earth, the
Right.
field of possibility.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, because what you're going to experience always is who you're being to yourself. All right.
Okay, so,
Christina,
so let's go with that. So I'll talk a little loud so the people online can hear. So let's say you go into a store, you're in your field, you're in your high frequency. And like Robin, you see something that you thought, oh, you go, oh, I like that. And you go, oh, you look at the price, you go, oh, that's something that I'm not can't afford right now. But you really don't have to lower your frequency that moment.
Not at all.
You really could just go, not today. Oh, that'd be something fun. I'll get
Right.
another time. But that takes vigilance to know whether I really did that or did I really just go into, whether they call it the bright side or whatever, like not, I'm the one that's gonna know whether I really stayed in my high frequency or went depressed that I couldn't buy that.
Right, and the idea that my ability to either get it or not get it says something about me. Right, so it's like, I think of the manifest reality as being the fun of it all, right? It's like the arena in which we play, and that's certainly true for shopping. You know, seeing the things that might be fun to have or not have. Everybody in this room and on this call, on the Zoom, have had the experience of the idea of getting something that would make all the difference to them, and it did for about 5 hours. Well, whatever it was, the car, the mate, the money, whatever. But the fullness of being on one's own side is an inside job, and it is it's the high frequency of love And it's out of which reality arises. And it doesn't mean that the reality always looks like especially not to other people, like shiny objects and the high end of whatever. It's not like that. It's like the feeling of what it means to be present on my own behalf and available for connection and for creation.
And whether it's right for me to have that now or not, I mean, that's part of that field,
Right.
it's like, and without diving down, like, oh, I can't have it, but just going, oh, and I don't know, there's something about being happy or okay with what I have and seeing that and not having a bad story about it. You know, you don't have to go down with it and just for
Right.
fun, I mean, it's just part of life that I don't go out and buy a Tesla or that, you know,
Right.
whatever. I don't really want one. I don't want to do the, you know, unless somebody gave me one, but
Right,
maybe.
yeah,
You know, I guess I'm saying that it's what I hear you saying is that it's more important that I'm enjoying myself inside of my being and all the moments and all the situations than anything else. And that's being on my own behalf.
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's the high frequency.
Hmm.
See, we self-abandoned with our self-judgment, which is the wound, the early wound. And that's a frequency underpinned by fear and polarity. And then we have the experience, no matter what the world looks like. This is an error that comes up, I think, for a lot of people when they're looking at lifestyles of the rich and famous, or even on Maui, we see people who live in very high-end circumstances and apparent, but that's not what they're experiencing.
Right.
That we can't equate that materiality and the all of that with, but we have to start to be home with ourselves and tell ourselves the truth about what I want from me, which is connection to my true nature, which is a sense in myself as the awareness in which realities arise. And by the time you get to be my age at 85, I've had many realities arise, right? I'm always looking back going, oh my gosh, that was quite a reality, right?
So Polly, just staying with the store
please. Yeah.
image for a minute.
Good.
So you don't ever see something that you say, oh, I can't afford that, or I can't have that. That doesn't happen for you. That reflects that
No.
there's a candy store and I can't have that candy. That doesn't happen.
No. Maybe it's because I don't see well, but it hasn't happened for a long time. Because everything, I am everything, and then this is the reality that reflects that back to me. That's the way it actually works, right? And when something shows up out here, it was initiated in what we would call the past. As we get closer to being on our own side, not caught up in the distortion field, then everything starts to be right here, right now.
So Lindsay has a question. Lindsay has her hand up.
All right.
Can
Oh,
I
yeah,
just
so
say-
it's not really a question, just kind
Okay,
of.
hang on,
Is it
Liz,
all
1
right?
second. Yeah, go ahead,
Mhm.
Sheena.
Well, it's not really about the store, but it's about the frequency and it's about staying in the frequency and on our own behalf. Today I had an experience where I got some items stolen from me. And I at first it was like, oh, you know, just for a moment, it was like when I realized what was happening, I didn't really get it at first. I thought, oh, I misplaced, I did, and then I realized, no, they were stolen. And I went into my car and I just sat for a moment and I just said, okay, now I want to keep my frequency high. What would I do to do that?
Mhm.
And I went into forgiveness. I went into imagining that the person needed something more than I needed it. And that I was, you know, that was something that they thought they needed. And I just did all the things that I knew that would keep my frequency high and care for myself. Rather than, and I really was deliberate about it, because I'm saying, oh, how that, if that succeeds, pray without ceasing,
Mhm.
then every minute I have the opportunity to be asking myself, what can I do to really be on my own behalf and be
That's right.
kind to me and compassionate with everyone else around me. So
You
that's
did-
what we're speaking about.
That's right. And the praying without ceasing is analogous to the frequency.
Yeah, that's.
So
what-
we're always
that
praying
was
without
the biggest
ceasing
thing.
because our frequency
love it.
That's, yeah, perfect. Yeah.
You know, you actually did a bionic Katie. That's exactly what she did when she was sprung.
Yeah.
She had the exact same thoughts. Yes, good job.
Okay, Lindsay.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, like, when all that time when you were talking, Polly, that just that sentence of that if you go in the store and if it means something about me, that I can't have that.
Right.
And then just the attachment, because I remember Eckhart Tolle saying something about like, I mean, just the wonder, and you can go, whether it's a castle, whether it's a huge acreage plot of land, or whether it's literally just a bird, it's like the ego mind identity, how it just wants to clasp and cling and like own that thing versus
Exactly.
getting to experience that thing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful distinction, Lindsay. The way in we actually have this reality, right? But our attachment out of our neediness, out of our fear, gives the ownership piece, because probably in the garden before the fall, ownership wasn't a question, and that's just an analogy for the allowing of all the good to flow through you without attachment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Cool, super cool. Anyone else have thoughts, questions? Yeah, Shakti.
In the current times with the politics as they are, I'm wondering about paying any attention to it at all. And if there's anything important about knowing what's going on.
Right, well, our giving undue attention to what we don't want or what we don't like doesn't make any sense, really. To trust that if something is important for you to know, it will come into your awareness at the same time that you're not willing to just be inundated through technology, through all of the devices and so forth, with what you're not interested in or what doesn't feel good to you. It The nature of reality is so up close and personal. We experience it in our body and in our mind and in our concentric circles of incarnational habitation, right? In this room, in that car, on this island. And so to be focused right where you are and be available for what's in front of you to do is the most efficacious. It's the most important thing, because if your mind is out somewhere where we're not funded to be out beyond where we are funded, right? And what I mean by funded is energetically funded. If you're driving, and I use this analogy a lot, you're driving down the street and you see a car that just had a wreck. You don't get out and throw yourself into the wreck. You call 911. So it's a kind of wisdom, a sense of what is appropriate, what is makes sense. Oh, but to be caught up in our mind in fear about something that we have no. See, our frequency is the most important thing we're contributing to this reality. Whether the reality is focused in DC or in the Middle East or in Ukraine, wherever it's focused, whatever reality is doing, our participation in it is real and it's energetic. And so to be caught in fear and resistance is the contribution that has resulted in what we have on the planet right now. So we don't serve by going beyond in our mind or in our reactivity, like our fear.
I like to call it divine detachment.
That's a good one.
Let it rise above it.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of doing our own work and being a space that is vibrationally ascending.
Right. Yeah,
Is
that's your
contributing.
contribution.
That's the name of the game.
That's what I was
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a very high bar, but it's the most real one.
yeah,
And that is what you're contributing to reality is first who you're being to yourself, which means you're clearing up the early wounding conclusion. Your self-negative
conversation,
Okay, Yeshi, are you guys done?
could be.
Yeah, okay. I think Yeshi has her hand in this, hang on, Yeshi, let me spotlight you 1 second. Okay, there we go.
Is that you? Is that her?
That's Yeshi, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she.
Hi, Pali. It's so good to be with you.
So glad to have you.
So I have a question. I understand that when I have a belief, for example, you know what Robin was saying, I can't have something, like there's a belief
Mhm.
that then I would work the 6 steps. But sometimes, like right now, for example, I'm feeling like a low vibration, but it's not like an idea about, you know, I don't have the thought I don't deserve something or I'm not enough or I can't have something. It's more just a feeling, like an energetic somatic feeling.
Mhm.
And I'm interested in like how to work with that in terms of transforming my vibration from just feeling kind of down to feeling more expansive.
Yeah, well, we do tend to um, confuse our energetic experience, like feeling like very, maybe not depressed, but quiet, feeling like a lack of energy. We don't want to, nor should we equate those with our spiritual frequency.
Mm.
Our bodies can go through a lot, and they do, as we know. They go through a lot, but the body's doing whatever it's doing. Who am I is always the question. I know myself to be the awareness of all of this, whatever this might be. And this might be sometimes a feeling of lethargy, or even like on the moving on the direction of symptomatic of a, say, a bad cold or something. But to know oneself as the awareness of it, and that whatever I am aware of is always it always comes to pass unless we resist it. And so we can allow things to move through without attaching to them. Especially if we feel there, if, you know, typically what we do is the minute we don't like it, we are in resistance to it. And that's the very thing that keeps it stuck. It'll hang on longer that way. This field of allowing is really such a, it's really the field of blessing, to allow things, because they will move. Awareness is what is, and everything else comes to pass, whether it's a mood or an identity or a something, ill health, say, whatever it is, all of it comes to pass. And for as far as the body unit goes, we're as dead now as we'll ever be, but this body will shift or pass, whatever. But who we are is the aliveness that creates realities. So it's just this deep breathing, this field of allowing is the best way to be kind to yourself when things feel sluggish or low energy. Do not equate low energy with low frequency.
Yeah. I'm not really thinking of like low energy and but it does have like an emotional feeling of downness. It's not just like a physical
Okay.
energy, but it has a quality of like, you know, just
Mhm.
unhappiness, let's say.
Right. Then I would definitely do the 6 steps to see what it is that I'm believing that has this nuance to it, this valence to it. It's probably something out of an early childhood experience.
So even if there's no obvious belief,
Right. You're triggered right now because you're experiencing, and you know to correct me if I get it wrong. What I hear you saying is you're triggered right now because you're having the experience of a kind of dysmorphia, a kind of unhappy, kind
Yeah.
of not like feeling unhappy.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we have that feeling, just to kind of condense the 6 steps, using that feeling. What's the earliest time that you can recall? Probably in your childhood, maybe even before that, in infancy, that you can recall feeling that same way.
Mhm.
Just that maybe I'm hearing you saying, so like a vague discontent.
Yeah.
Does any
You're
memory come to your mind?
Yeah, it's like a just, kind of a very like just, it doesn't have like any words to it.
Right.
I mean, I can feel it as I can feel my body being little.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like ideas about it,
Mm-hmm.
but I can feel I
Mm-hmm.
can feel a feeling. I can feel a feeling in a young body. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you have any sense of what was going on around you?
Just yeah, I feel just alone.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So when that happened, even though you didn't have language, uh, it constellated within you that it meant something about you.
Uh-huh.
And this is a rather intuitive arena when we get into these early infancy kinds of experiences. But energetically, something was concluded. You may intuitively have a sense of that.
Uh-huh.
When that was going on and you felt alone and with this unhappiness, you believed it meant something about you.
Yeah.
What might that have been?
Yeah. Mhm. Like just um, that I'm disconnected, that I'm by myself.
Mm. That feeling of aloneness.
Yeah.
When we believe that about ourselves, then we take it on that the infant takes on everything, not consciously, are not expressed in language, but because we've experienced ourselves as reality, as what is, right? And now we have this body. And when something happens that's untoward or leaves us feeling, in this case, alone, we believe it means something about us.
Yeah.
That I'm not connected would be at least one part of that, like you said.
Yeah.
If you can see that, I forgive myself for ever believing that I am not connected.
Mhm.
That awareness shining on that early experience is
Mm.
experienced as I know who I am. I am the awareness of this experience of disconnection, of not being held, taken care of. Um,
Yeah.
so
So
anything you can see, right? And
yeah.
together right now, we're seeing this early experience and the conclusion
Yeah.
that got installed. So now when conditions are that mimic that or are like that, that this wound comes into your consciousness. And so you have that experience again. It may be pretty common for you. Um, Most people, these early ones are pretty pervasive throughout our lives with different circumstances.
Yeah.
Um,
So I forgive myself for believing that I am disconnected.
All right, I know who I am. I'm basically everything. I am
Yes.
the awareness in which this infinite experience has been arising. I am now the observer. I'm the witness to that infinite experience. I believed it was about a me, right?
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the forgiveness is the key.
yeah,
And you
It's-
might put that little infant in your arms and say, the cutest little baby ever, I'm sure, Yeshi, you know, and say, I'm here now. We've got this. We've got this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I can, it's so amazing, like I can just, you know, like what you were saying, like the separation between that little being and the awake awareness of her
Right.
makes such a difference. Yeah,
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Yeshi.
Yeah.
Adora has her hand up.
Hi.
Hang on a second, let me get you up here for Polly. 1 second. There you are.
Hi, Dora.
Hello, everybody, my Maui family. Um,
Yes.
so I have an interesting question because I would say, so January, I always declare as a me month. You know, I go inside, I do fasting, I do lots of yoga and breath work and I always laugh. Actually, I just got this, somebody said to me, why don't you do a me year? But then of course I go, well, we probably don't deserve that or something, because there's how much being with yourself and that wonderful experience do we get to have? And and I think sometimes it happens because we claim the time, or it becomes the right time in our life. I'm no longer, mothering my son. I'm taking a time out from being a wife and my roles. So it's easier. There's an easierness to it. Also, I'm a yoga teacher, and I just want to say that, like in today's class, for some reason, I've been teaching and like leaning into more restorative yoga, that people are really physically in their bodies being affected by all the energy. I'm just going to call it energy that's going on in the world, and they're taking it in. And so I'm really loving doing a lot of yoga right now, and also breath work, just to remind myself to stay in my own heaven on earth. And I have not connected to the outside world much. And I want to give myself permission to do that more, because I do feel almost a guilt, like that not survivor's guilt of feeling good right now and life is going well, but that would make it a judgment that not doing well is worse and doing well is better. So I just want to sort of just be in the energy of the positivity, and also then overflow it to everyone around me. But, and here's my question, it's so easy to be with myself, and then I have to go back out in the world. And so do you have any, advice about that? Like, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and all of a sudden, somebody's name got brought up who's in the media right now, and it was like I couldn't help them. And then I started to see myself and I'm like, whoa, I don't go there, But anyway, anything you could say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dora. Yeah, being true north on our own behalf is a process of reclaiming our attention particles from out there, which is what you do with your January me month, right? Which is great. But true north, authenticity depends on us being present here and then offering whatever. It's a different geometry than what we're used to, which is tilting ourselves into the problem or the other, like that. So it's like being present back. It's like an integrated sense of true north on one's own behalf, and offering always what is a blessing, what's true, but not from a place of the idea that you are here on behalf of others. Ramana Maharshi once was asked by one of his devotees, after he had done a Dharma talk and hadn't mentioned service, his devotee walked up to him and said, but Guru, what are we to do about the others? And Ramana said, there are no others. And so we come to this place of if it's not done here, you ain't gonna do it out there. This is the place of true north, of integration, of being available, and you will be of great benefit to reality. Your frequency on your own behalf, and you will find yourself, just as I found myself in the 4 years since I've been back on Maui, being a focus for the Sangha and for the teaching. You'll find yourself offering, doing. You won't have to figure it out, but this has to be in place first. And that's a practice until it falls into place and locks in. But that's, yeah, it's all about you. Yeah. Thank you, Adora. Thank you. Is that Adora?
Yeah,
I got it right.
you got it right.
Good.
All right. Wow, Polly, that was terrific. Thank you so much for that insight into the
Please.
the world.
Thank you.
And we're coming to the bottom of the hour here. So we're gonna pause the recording here and we'll meet again, I think. Let's see, next week is the last week in January. I think after that, we'll go back to the hour earlier time.
30.
Yeah, but I will, I'll for sure let you know.